All right, the time is 6:05, so I want to get started. Again, I want to say good evening, Denverites. Thank you for joining this important conversation. The mayor will be on in just a moment, and after we hear from him, we'll hear from Michael Sapp, Community Outreach Director with the Department of Public Safety, and then we'll be able to hear from a few other folks from our team and open it up to questions and comment. During that time, if you'd like to speak, you just press *5 and you'll be put in a queue, and we'll be able to see that you want to speak. To respect everybody, we're going to keep the call unmuted unless you're speaking, and we understand that this is a very important topic, and it can elicit a lot of passions. But we want to make sure that there's no offensive language, and with respect to this conversation, we do want to stay on topic, specifically to the issue of youth gun violence. And so with that, we want to just make sure that this conversation not only is constructive, but it honors the lives of those who have been impacted and the serious crisis that we're going through. And so without further ado, I want to introduce the 45th Mayor of Denver, Michael B. Hancock.
Thank you, Quan, and let me thank everyone for joining us tonight on this very important phone call or teleconference on this critical issue in the life of our community. I want to start by acknowledging, of course, the recent acts of youth violence that occurred just a few days ago with the death of a young man on the west side and a young woman in the Montbello community. We continue to pray for those families and, of course, working diligently to find the answers to both of those cases as we deal with them, and certainly find out what happened in both of those cases. We're on this call because over the last few years we have seen, sadly, an increase in deadly youth gun violence in the city of Denver. One of the startling facts is that we are seeing a trend that these types of incidents are involving younger kids. Those of us who have watched for years youth violence all over this country know it's typically, the 12 to 24-year-olds, principally the 18 to 24-year-olds who perpetrate the gun violence. But recently the trend is that we're seeing 12 to 17-year-olds who are most prevalent in the gun violence in our community. I recently sat down with a group of youth here at City Hall, and we talked openly about how they're being personally impacted by youth violence and their outlook on life. I got to tell you, it was startling, bleak, and unhopeful. They are troubled and by the fact that they really felt like nothing could be done about the problem that we're experiencing in our city. Obviously, I disagree, and as a city and as a community, we must do everything in our power to make sure that these young people understand that we can solve this issue, and we're going to work together to do just that. However, as you know, they are seeing their friends and loved ones die, and some feel like it is only a matter of time before they die as well, and that was painful for me to hear. But we got to work together as a community to make sure that this is not the case. Now, we've been working on several tactics here at the city and county as a government, and tactics my office and the public safety department have been intricately involved with, and you're going to hear about some of those tonight. But let me say that, I've been involved with public service now for 20 years. I'm a lifelong Denver resident, and this problem has been going on for a long time. I was in high school when gangs arrived in Denver, but we're seeing these incidents of violence occur in our city without really attachment to gangs. It's moved beyond that. While we're seeing gang violence decrease, we are seeing youth violence increase. At these times, it's been more severe than others as we've looked at youth violence over years, but it takes a larger community approach to impact this issue. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this teleconference is to talk about what we can do as a community to save the lives of these young people and to begin to restore their outlook on life. I know you those of you who are on the line and many in our community would be just as startled by the comments of our young people. There's nothing scarier and I think more dangerous in any community than the lack of hope. What we know is that this violence creates a perpetuating cycle in our community. And if we don't break the cycle and help our kids feel safe again, they will keep arming themselves and making terrible, tragic choices. I'm going to ask Michael Sapp, who is a Deputy Director in Public Safety, if he can take a moment to share a little bit about what he has been hearing as he works on one of the things that we're working on as an action team, as they are working to develop some of our tactics and strategies. So I'll turn it over to Michael Sapp.
Excuse me, Mayor. We do have Spanish interpretation, so I want to allow our interpreter a second to
absolutely
relay your remarks.
Thank you. Juan.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for everyone who has joined this conference tonight. I just wanted to start by acknowledging, buenas noches, gracias a todos los que han acompañado esta conferencia la noche del día de hoy. Quisiera comenzar por reconocer los hechos de violencia que han ocurrido en los últimos días y la muerte de un joven muchacho en el área del west o del occidente de la ciudad y una mujer en el área de Montbello. Las pérdidas de sus familias han creado gran dolor dentro de nuestras comunidades y como actos de violencia juvenil. Una de ellas pudo haber sido también relacionada con retos de comportamiento. Las dos causan gran dolor dentro de nuestras comunidades y nuestros vecindarios y familia. Durante los últimos años hemos visto tristemente el crecer y el incremento en las muertes relacionadas con violencia de armas e incidentes de violencia de armas en una de nuestras ciudades y definitivamente ha sido algo que hemos visto el incremento en los grupos de edades. Las historias y los récords de violencia juvenil típicamente estaban entre los 12 y 18 años y mayormente se extendían entre los 18 y 25 años, pero recientemente hemos visto un incremento a las edades de 18 a 17 años prominentemente. Así que me senté con un grupo de jóvenes en esta última semana y ellos expresan su imposibilidad y la desesperanza de un tipo de situación como esta, ya que sienten que no hay nada que ellos puedan hacer. Obviamente yo estoy en desacuerdo de esa posición porque esperamos poder hacer un trabajo como ciudad y si trabajamos todos juntos, hay cosas que podemos hacer para lograr la diferencia. Por los últimos 20 años he trabajado en el área de servicio público y he experimentado también actos de violencia como estos, desde actos de violencia cuando estaba en la escuela secundaria y anteriormente la mayoría de los actos de violencia ni siquiera estaban relacionados con pandillas, sino sucedían por diferentes situaciones. Así que definitivamente nosotros sabemos que no nos podemos quedar callados y esperamos tener un impacto y tomar esta situación desde una perspectiva de la comunidad y ver qué podemos hacer como comunidad por parte de la ciudad y por parte del trabajo que hemos estado haciendo. Tenemos con nosotros a Michael Sapp, quien ha estado con nosotros trabajando en esto tan importante. Michael Sapp, si pudiera por favor tomar un momento para contarnos un poco de las iniciativas y del trabajo que estamos gestionando con el equipo de acción y lo que se está desarrollando.
Thank you, Angelica. Michael Sapp?
Yes, good evening, Denver and folks who are participating on the call. This is Michael Sapp, Director of Government Community Relations for the Department of Safety. And what I want to do in a few minutes that I have before I turn it over to Pat Hedrick is kind of walk through what Mayor Hancock and the mayor's office stood up last year. We stood up this action table around youth gun violence to really begin to improve our internal systems alignment and communication to reduce redundancies in our service delivery. In the city and county of Denver, we have services that are focused on youth gun violence, but more comprehensive services on juvenile services. And what this action table is designed to do in partnership with Bloomberg Associates, the District Attorney's Office, U.S. Attorney, ATF, Denver Health, Denver Public Schools, our court systems, and multiple and various community organizations is to begin to coordinate and align those services so that we're taking a comprehensive approach to ending a lot of the gun violence that is targeting a lot of our communities. I do want to let folks know that the mayor's office a few years back, through an executive order 139, set up the Denver Children's Cabinet, where we are mapping city investments into our young people. This tool is available online, but through the Department of Safety, through the Denver Police Department, under the leadership of Chief Paul Pazin, we have stood up a citywide impact team that's really taken a public health lens on how we address the social harms that are impacting our young people. We also, through the Department of Safety, have a program called the Gang Reduction Initiative Denver, which Pat Hedrick will get into, but really focusing on prevention, intervention, and suppression tactics. I will tell folks on the phone that we are looking at every tool, and one of the reasons why we're very interested in this conversation is to understand from the community perspective what are some areas where we can partner together and be solution oriented as we look at tactics to solve this issue. But with that, I am going to turn it over to Pat Hedrick, who is our Director of Youth Safety Programs, who will kind of give you some more context on this department that is serving our young people every day.
Thank you, Michael, and good evening to everyone on the call, and thank you for taking time to be on this call and discuss this important issue. As Michael said, my name is Pat Hedrick. I'm the Director of Denver Public Safety Youth Programs, and I'm going to provide just a quick overview of our history of our program, as well as a couple of our current initiatives that we are running right now. Youth Programs was created in 1994 as a result of a series of meetings between city and community leaders to address youth violence. This led to the creation of what was then called the Safe City Office, which has since been renamed as Denver Public Safety Youth Programs. At that time, Safe City was focused in on expanding diversion programs and employment programs for youth as a strategy to address youth violence. Over the past 25 years, our focus has continued to expand diversion services within the city and county of Denver in an effort to support youth and families without involving the courts whenever possible. While we still operate the Municipal Juvenile Diversion Program, we have now created a voluntary diversion program where any youth, any family, regardless of court involvement, can receive support services. The same services that are available to youth in our Municipal Juvenile Diversion Program are now available to youth without any court involvement. The idea is to try to provide services at the earliest point possible and to make sure that services that are traditionally available only on the quote-unquote deep end of the system are available in a prevention manner so that kids do not enter our system. As Mayor Hancock mentioned earlier, one of the things that we have seen is that we continue to get requests for services for kids at an earlier age. Just yesterday, I fielded a call from a family requesting services for their 8-year-old child. We need to be ready to serve these youth and these families whenever they're ready for services. In 2009, we saw an opportunity to return to our roots in youth violence prevention and assumed a responsibility for creating a comprehensive gang reduction plan. As Michael mentioned, the Gang Reduction Initiative was kicked off in 2009 with the goal of creating a comprehensive plan to reduce gang violence in the city and county of Denver. This was a long process, and it involved both city, state, federal, and community agencies and community leaders to address this issue. For both diversion and for GRID, the key to success has always been collaboration and understanding that it takes multiple partners, including community, obviously, to make an impact. I'm going to turn it back over to Quan now to begin to take questions, and we can answer more questions before we continue the call. So, Quan, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Pat. And before we get to questions, just want to remind everybody that when you do want to speak, you want to press 5-star. I might have misspoke earlier, but it's 5-star. That will let us know that you want to speak, and you'll be put in the queue. I did want a chance to highlight another member of our team, Mr. Danny Glover. He is doing the direct outreach from the mayor's office and would like to speak to folks who are interested in helping us outreach. We want to get as many voices in this conversation and helping us connect with our residents and impact our youth positively.
I just want to take a few.
Sorry, go ahead, Danny. Can you start over?
Thank you. No worries. Thank you, Quan, and thank you all for being on this call at this moment to discuss this very critical issues we are dealing with in our community. However, I did want to speak to you all for a few moments. I know we're all willing and eager to get to the questions, but I did want to highlight a few of the projects we're working on within the mayor's office and would love to have your help and participation. So the biggest project we're working on and primarily focused in the far northeast area, but we are partnering with our friends and community groups on the west side. But the plan for the summer is to how do we eradicate murders over the summer? How do we fill our youth's time with activities, with positive activities that in turn prevent murders? So we are working with a group of 15 community groups to establish that plan, to create that program, and to create that visibility, youth empowerment through data and tracking and incentives. I won't go into further details, but if you would like to participate or if you would like for your community group to join these efforts in planning out the summers for a goal of 0 murders, please email me or give me a call. My email address is danny.glover@denvergov.org. Again, that's danny.glover@denvergov.org. The only way we're going to solve this problem is all of us coming together to bring our ideas, our energy, our time, and our efforts to the table and creating a plan. And I think we have the resources here to do it. So I look forward to working with you, Denver.
Muy bien, y también en este tiempo queremos aprovechar la oportunidad para anunciar que muy pronto vamos a estar abriendo el lugar para algunas preguntas y respuestas, y las personas que están interesadas en hacer parte y ponerse en la lista de quienes desean hacer un comentario, pregunta y respuesta deben presionar la tecla número 5 y la tecla estrella. Entonces el número 5 y la estrella o asterisco van a ser para que se coloquen en la lista de quienes desean participar.
Thank you, Danny and Angelica. And again, we are now going to move into open comment and questions. So if you'd like to speak, please press 5-star now.
Ok, ahora nos vamos a mover a la sección de comentarios y preguntas y respuestas, así que si usted quiere participar o hablar, puede por favor presionar el número 5 y la tecla asterisco ahora.
Okay, we have a comment from caller last 4 digits 8555. Speak now.
Un comentario de la persona que tiene los últimos dígitos 8555, por favor, hable ahora.
Hello? Hello?
We can hear you.
This is Helen Rigmaiden, and I'm a longtime Denver native. And I'm wondering, is gun buyback part of anything you're discussing? And, you know, I'm not talking about $50 for a handgun and $100 for a rifle. I'm talking about some big bucks to really entice the kids to turn in the guns. Because my concern is, where are these kids getting these guns?
Helen, this is Michael Sapp in the Department of Safety, and
Hi, Michael.
Thank you. Hi, Helen. Thank you for your question. I will tell you that in partnership with Denver Police Department and an organization called Project Child Safe, we are going to hold a press conference this Thursday at 10 a.m. where we're going to give out a little over about 1,300 gun locks, and we're going to have our Safe Haven church network distribute gun locks throughout the city. What we're seeing is an increase in property crime, and what we're trying to communicate with this these gun locks and even efforts with safe storage is to really encourage gun owners to properly store their guns, but also have gun locks that they can keep in place so that if their vehicle is stolen or if their house is broken into, that there is a gun lock on their gun to prevent someone from using that in a crime.
Helen, if I can, this is Mayor Hancock. Michael's absolutely correct, but let me zero in on something he said just so we can make clear what, to your question about gun buyback. Typically the people who show up at those are not the ones who are carrying guns with the intent of, one, protecting themselves or prepared to do violence against someone they have a beef with. Primarily because, to Michael's point, we see a direct correlation between the rise in property crimes, primarily theft from autos, and the and gun violence. And a lot of the guns that are being used are not, they're stolen. They're stolen guns, particularly by these young people. And so they're taking guns from their parents, but they're also breaking into autos. And so we see a correlation between auto thefts and the number of these stolen guns that are on the streets. So, the Office of Independent Monitor, so you know, youth group is planning the gun buyback later on in the fall. But the most effective thing we can do is to if you are a rightful and lawful gun owner, is to lock that gun up and to not carry it in your vehicle. And if you are carrying it in your vehicle, to keep it locked and secure, and take one of these locks that are easy to install and to lock the gun.
Okay. Do you think that there are kids out there with guns that aren't going to lock them up, that we could possibly shake the tree and get them to turn their guns in for money?
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, if the offer is big enough, no questions asked, right? Bring the gun.
Yes, right.
And drop it off. And so it's always worth an effort to try it. I'm glad to know that the Independent Monitors Youth Group is going to try it. And we're talking about internally, but we're starting with the process of encouraging, reminding people to secure their guns while they're in their homes and in their automobiles.
Okay, thank you.
Hablando del hecho y el área de la recompra de las armas, estamos desafortunadamente bajo una situación en la que la mayoría de las armas que se utilizan en estos incidentes desafortunados son en su mayor parte armas que han sido robadas de jóvenes. Entonces, parte importante de lo que queremos hacer y de lo que estamos haciendo es promover el hecho de que se utilicen los candados y los lugares seguros para colocar estas armas, ya que la mayoría de las armas que son utilizadas son armas que estos jóvenes han tomado ya sea de sus padres, de otras personas o aún las han tomado de carros. Así que vamos a estar haciendo una sesión de recompras y un grupo de entrenamiento con el grupo de jóvenes que va a ser en el otoño, pero mientras tanto lo que queremos es promover que las personas que tengan armas las utilicen y las mantengan en lugares seguros utilizando los sistemas de candados para tenerlas seguros y no mantener las armas dentro de los automóviles.
Oh, we're going to move to the next caller. Michael Eden, are you still there? Michael Eden?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Great, thank you. So my name is Mike Eaton. I'm the chief of the Department of Safety for Denver Public Schools, and thank you, Mayor and team, for putting this together. I know the Superintendent Cordova has been very heavily involved in discussions around youth violence affecting DPS kids. I think one of the questions that I have, or maybe suggestions I'd like to pose, is, going back to what Pat said about, receiving requests for students at younger age, up to an 8-year-old yesterday. We really would like to think about taking a targeted approach with our elementary schools on some of the gang prevention training, specifically around the 4th and 5th grade. I think the challenge we're running into right now is just the resources available. And so are there opportunities where we can get more trainers or even grant funding that would allow DPS to take a more targeted approach and provide some of that training in partnership with the city? And two is, working with Sherry Jackson, can we develop some type of data that would show the benefits of the GREAT or GRASP program that would then intrigue our schools or even our district to, allocate funding to continue to support that and expand it throughout DPS?
Hi, this is Pat Hedrick. And Mike, I think it's a great recommendation. And just so callers know, through the Gang Reduction Initiative of Denver, we started the GREAT, the Gang Resistance Education and Training Program, several years ago, and are running that in multiple elementary schools right now. I believe to date the GRID project and the GREAT project has served over 9,000 DPS students. And I think to your point, and is the point I made earlier, years ago we were always looking at middle school as that initial age where we really needed to get involved, but clearly anymore we need to backtrack that to the elementary schools and begin to find those partnerships where we can support those kids at an earlier pace. And so while some of that is going, I completely agree with you, Mike, that there's some opportunities ahead of us to be able to expand that and maybe move into some different schools, different neighborhoods as well too.
Yeah, this is Mayor Hancock again. Michael, thank you for all that you're doing. I had a chance to meet you recently in Montbello campus, high school campus, where teachers and principals came together. But one of the things that in a briefing with the chief recently, and of course we're all stunned by this trend of young people 12 to 17 really being mostly involved in some of the youth violence we've seen recently, is to get to our elementary schools and get them early. The best way to end what we're seeing as a trend is to cut off the supply of young people going that direction. And so we are going to closely coordinate with DPS, with you all, to determine how we can do what we like to call the Bowser model, the hot spot, hot people. Identify, work with schools as we see young people who might be, going in a different direction. They all of a sudden their attendance starts going awry. Their grades are not doing quite as well. They're starting to act up where they didn't in the past. And how do we do that in a non-criminal or crime or law enforcement way with social workers and people who work with the families and bring the tools necessary for parents as well as the community, the school community, to help this young person regain his or her traction and get back on the right track. So those are things we're going to work very closely with DPS to address.
No, thank you, Mayor. And I think your words in that meeting about allowing more community folks in that want to do the work was well received, and I appreciate that.
Fantastic.
Estas son las palabras del alcalde Michael Hancock y estoy muy contento de haberlo conocido a usted, Michael, hace unos cuantos días en la reunión que tuvimos en el área del High School de Montbello y en la reunión que tuvimos con el coordinador, y definitivamente estamos impresionados de ver el alza y los rangos de edad de los estudiantes afectados por estas situaciones, como mencionamos anteriormente, edades de 12 a 17 años. Entonces, definitivamente es una prioridad para nosotros el entrar al área de las escuelas primarias y cortar esto temprano desde el lugar donde se comienza a hacer y a proveer todos estos recursos. Entonces, hablamos de las maneras en las que podamos ayudar a estas personas que se encuentran en la línea de fuego y que las notamos que sus asistencias comienzan a bajar, que su comportamiento comienza a cambiar de manera y a transicionar de una manera diferente. Entonces, ¿cómo podemos nosotros proveer recursos para estas personas y acercarnos a ellos de una forma que no sea de una manera que se involucre el sistema de justicia criminal? Y hablamos de trabajar con instituciones comunitarias o personas e instituciones en la comunidad que están dispuestas a hacer el trabajo y trabajar en sociedad con Denver Public Schools.
Awesome. We're going to move to the next caller, Jonathan McMillan.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Essentially, everything that everything I was planning on saying has been said for the most part. I know there's a lot of community members. To Mike Eaton's point about DPS and community really wanting to be involved in the solutions with DPS. There are a lot of people out here in the community that are chomping at the bits to be able to bring in that grassroots, that community organization lens into the schools to help build a better collaborative between what the schools are doing and what the community can do, the ones who are really invested. Additionally, there's other agencies outside of just Department of Safety and Children's Affairs and the Mayor's Office directly, like Office of Independent Monitor, which are really looking at how do we involve our young people in the solutions and try to impact the violence that's happening from the far northeast all the way over to the southwest side. You know, just about a month ago, there was a town hall that was organized. Over 24 organizations, individuals, and city agencies were invited to bring young people to the table, whether they were from probation, diversion, from the schools, from the basketball teams, to really address what the issues were that were driving the violence and what the young people saw as the solutions that they needed from the adults in the room. And when that data has been kind of synthesized, a lot of that has come back is, yes, of course they want jobs, and yes, of course they want quality schools and education, but a lot of what they're asking for, and when I say a lot, I mean over 60% of the responses that came in, was that they really wanted some social, emotional support from the adults in the community, whether that's in the form of mentoring, whether that's a form of after-school programs, whether that's the form of in-school programs, but adults that are really taking time to check in with them and value their experience and be able to work with them in a non-judgmental, non-authoritative way, manner, but just somebody who's taking time to say that we care about you, we're investing in your future, and we're going to support you.
Thank you, Jonathan, and we know that you are a champion in the community and continue to do the great work. We look forward to continuing to support your efforts. I think you hit the nail on the head with your comments. I want to move to the next caller. Caller, last four digits is 1163. Again, that's 1163. Please unmute and speak.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I just want to say my first name. My name is Nicole. I'm an aunt of a youth victim. Actually, I lost my nephew last summer to gun violence. And my question is what are we doing for gun storage laws? What are we doing for the parents to be responsible for these youth? You know, it has to start at home. It has to start somewhere. Like, there's just so much. I'm in my 30s, and I grew up in the late 90s when the gangs and stuff were kind of coming to an end and everything. And a lot of my peers are still in that, like, OG lifestyle, and so it's traded off onto their kids. We need to work with these parents to get these parents to make these guns not accessible to these kids at home. There needs to be better storage laws. There needs to be, something has to change. It has to change. I understand that there's a lot of stolen guns out there, but they're getting them from home too. So what are these storage laws? What are we going to do for something like that? With the gun
Nicole,
storage?
I appreciate that, Nicole. Your point is well taken, and that's why this Thursday, as Michael Sapp pointed out, that the Department of Safety will be announcing and I'll be standing with them to announce a gun lock or safety lock system that we're going to be giving away about 1,300 of them. And because what we are saying is the point I made earlier, and Michael Sapp alluded to it as well, is as we see property crimes rise, we see the theft of guns also rising from cars, from homes, and unfortunately these guns are being used in a lot of these youth violence incidents that are occurring in the city. So that's first and foremost, to remind and to encourage everyone. It's a moment of a sense of urgency. Lock your guns up and keep them out of the hands, to help keep them out of the hands of young people. Secondly, one of the things that really surprised a lot of us this spring and summer is when we received a briefing from law enforcement. And what we learned is that this is less about gang violence than it is about social media, or beefs that begin on social media. And as a parent, we tend to give our kids space and let them be kids, and they're communicating on Twitter. I don't know if young people use Facebook anymore or whatever they're using, Instagram, all of these different tools that they're using to communicate. But we're finding out, and law enforcement backed this up, that a lot of these incidents begin on social media. And the beefs begin, and then all of a sudden they run into one another on the street, or they go looking for one another on the street. As parents, we need to tune in. I never felt it was a violation of my kids' rights to go on to their social media to follow them. My wife followed them. We knew what they were doing, saying, and if we saw something untoward or inappropriate, we got to them. And so it's important that our young people, as a parent of young people, that we're monitoring. And to the point that both Pat and Michael have made, and I've made it as well, and the chief of police will say this, we're talking about kids who are in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade.
Agree.
Just real quick, this is Pat Hedrick again. One of the things, since you touched on family, one of the things that we have started to do is work with community-based organizations to actually bring in evidence-based family skill-building programs to the community and do it in a prevention manner. So we've trained a couple of different organizations, and we're looking for more partners. So if folks are interested, I'd love to hear from you, to implement the Strengthening Families program, to, again, help understand about setting boundaries. As the mayor said, to make sure that the parents know that it's okay to monitor your kids' social media pages, that you don't have to be a friend, you're the parent first. And parenting is difficult. They don't give you a handbook when your child is born and tell you, here's everything you need to know. So the Strengthening Families program just provides an opportunity to give parents some more skills. It allows them to actually connect together to discuss, shared experiences and what works for them, what doesn't work for them. So in addition to the safe storage and even the point that Jonathan made about having those caring adults, some of the work we need to do is also to directly, as you mentioned, work with parents, and we've taken some steps in that direction. We're also partnering with Denver Human Services to pilot a program called Parent Connect with the support of the Annie Casey Foundation. So there's a lot of efforts on that parenting side as well, too. And, again, we could use more partners, and we'll have our contact information, and anybody that's interested would love to talk to you.
Great question, Nicole.
Thank you.
Sorry for your loss as well.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to the next caller. Can I get Keith Emerson? I'm going to unmute you now. Keith Emerson?
Hello. I've got a couple of points. First off, gun locks are nice, but they are not going to prevent a gun from being stolen. If you're going to be supporting the coming state proposal for safe firearms storage, do you really believe that making criminals out of people who don't lock other firearms up to your satisfaction will solve this violence problem? Also, you're framing the conversation in terms of youth gun violence only. As far as that goes, last weekend, 3 people were killed in Chicago, 6 wounded, and a day later, 22,000 mostly heavily armed people got together in Virginia, and there was one arrest for a woman who wouldn't take a bandana off. So I'm not sure why you insist on framing this as a gun problem. Thank you.
Keith, thank you
so much.
Yeah, that's all right. And I apologize. I know Angelica's on here for translation. I want to make sure we provide her the buffer to translate. So we'll try to be a little more concise and allow for that time to happen. And Helica, if you're still on the line.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Listen, what we're talking about today is a rise in youth gun violence. And what we know is that there is a direct correlation between the number of guns that are being stolen and this rise that's going forth in the city of Denver. We're not couching this simply just as a gun violence issue. We recognize that there are a lot of things going on, including, the still prevalence of gang violence. We still have issues with mental health with our young people, a rising concern around mental health. We still have a lot of stuff that Jonathan talked about, the lack of presence of adults in the lives of these young people that we have to, as a community, as a society, we've got to be aware of and have to deal with. So we don't mean to couch it strictly as a gun violence issue, but we are talking about youth gun violence tonight and how young people are getting their hands on these guns. And if a lot of these, again, you're seeing these guns being stolen from cars, they're taking the guns from their home. I don't know, the reality is that chances are possibly kids are less likely to grab a gun that they see is already locked up, and they'll go looking for a gun that's much easier to utilize. So that's what we're suggesting. That's one thing. We also talk about the social media aspect, being aware of what your kids are doing and anything they may become involved with through conversations on social media, helping to bring a responsible adult in the life of a young person. So I've heard several themes tonight that are all a part of what we're thinking about. And let me just add one last thing before we allow Angelica to translate here. There is a precipitous rise in the number of clinician social workers that are being hired by Denver Public Schools. They've already doubled the number of social workers. City of Denver has doubled the number of social workers. Many social human service organizations have doubled their staff where they can, where funding allows them, because of the need to respond to this incredible challenge that our young people are facing in the city of Denver that many times result in gun violence or violence in general. Angelica?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So we're talking about the rise of youth violence and as a correlation with the number of rising. Estamos hablando también al incremento de la violencia y las armas juveniles, y eso correlacionado con el incremento de la cantidad de armas que son robadas. Entonces, no estamos hablando únicamente del incidente de violencia de armas, también sabemos que incluye y que tenemos situaciones de salud mental y que también hemos estado mencionando la ausencia de presencia de adultos en las vidas de estos jóvenes. Así que son situaciones de las cuales todos debemos estar pendientes y debemos estar conscientes. No estamos diciendo que este es el único hecho y la única situación por la cual estos están pasando, pero el tema de esta noche es que estamos hablando el tema de violencia de armas juveniles. Entonces, obviamente la mayoría de estas armas en muchos de estos casos son armas que han sido robadas o armas que han sido tomadas de las casas, y esperamos que el hecho de que tengan un candado o que estén aseguradas estas armas haga un poco más difícil que estos jóvenes tengan acceso a estas armas. También hemos hablado del gran incremento y de la presencia y las implicaciones de las redes sociales en muchos de estos incidentes, y cómo es necesario tener la presencia de adultos responsables en las vidas de estos estudiantes o de estos jóvenes involucrados. También estamos mencionando el hecho de que muchas de las instituciones han doblado, instituciones como las escuelas públicas de Denver y aún la ciudad de Denver han doblado la cantidad de trabajadores sociales que tienen, y otras instituciones que no son solamente limitadas a la ciudad de Denver o las escuelas públicas de Denver, también las que están en capacidad de hacerlo han doblado la cantidad de trabajadores sociales, y esperamos continuar trabajando en esto para proveer las ayudas necesarias.
So thank you. We're going to move to the next caller. We have a caller with the last four digits, 1359, and that's 1359. I'm unmuting you now.
Hello. I was wondering, my name is Mike Taylor. I was wondering if there was going to be a way to track progress from some of the ideas mentioned. Like one example, it was discussed earlier, the DPS would like to expand their gun resistance or gang resistance program to elementary grades. Will there be like a bullet point kind of thing of ideas brought up in this phone call, and a way to see how the different ideas proposed already in the works or new things would advance going forward?
Yeah, Mike, thank you for that question. This is Pat Hedrick with Safety Youth Programs. One of the things that we are working on, Michael mentioned the Youth Violence Action table. One of the things we were working on is a program inventory, so we have a full understanding of what all services are available, not only from the city but also in the community. And as a part of that, that enables us to track that expansion of services, just as you're referencing, to be able to come back at a certain point in time and let the mayor know here and let the residents know, here's what we've done so far. Here's the outcomes we've seen so far. I think what you're going to see is that anything that we're trying to address is going to be done with a data-driven aspect to it. We want to make sure not only that we're just throwing services at it, but also these services are effective and they're having the intended impact that we hope to have. So tracking these efforts and these outcomes will be key. And the Youth Violence Action Table is providing updates to the mayor's office on a regular basis so that he's kept abreast of everything that's happening on too, and then we can communicate that back out to the community as well.
Mike, this is Mayor Hancock as well. I was over the weekend thinking about the things that we've done over the last literally 8 years since I've been mayor to address really not so much youth violence, but the healthiness of our young people. And when you look at the list of a lot of the things we've done, we've increased police in the city of Denver. We've strengthened our coordination with DPS. We've opened rec centers to all young people under the age of 18 in our city. There were less than 800 kids who were members of the rec program in 2011. Today, they're in excess of 100,000 children who are walking in and out of our rec center programs. We've increased funding for summer camps, after-school programs. We've increased summer youth employment dollars and putting kids to work. Last 2 summers, we provided free public transportation to young people under the age of 18 so they can get to work, they can get to summer school, they can get to summer programming. We are looking at all of these on how we provide the keys to the city to young people. What we need to do a much stronger job, a better job at doing, and this comes to where the community can be helpful, is not to look at, reducing youth violence just as a law enforcement government action, but what Jonathan said, how do we get to those social systems that our young people are saying they're yearning for, these socio-emotional support elements, the things that Pat has talked about. And that's where a lot of the ideas that you all are talking about are going to be helpful to us. I can keep hiring social workers, but if no one is coming to those, it doesn't help. We can keep talking about mentoring in our MBK program, and My Brother's Keeper program. If we don't have mentors volunteering, we can't match them up with kids. But that's really where the rubber meets the road on these things. But that's how we can, if we do those things, we'll begin to see, my hope and prayer, a decrease in some of these challenges that we have in the city.
Aquí este es el alcalde Michael Hancock, y lo que quiero decir es que definitivamente en este fin de semana estaba reflexionando lo que nosotros y nuestra administración ha hecho por la ciudad y por los residentes de Denver en los últimos 8 años, y definitivamente hemos visto un incremento en la presencia de policía en la ciudad. También hemos visto un incremento en diferentes recursos que le pueden proveer a los menores herramientas para que puedan acceder a diferentes cosas. Solo durante el tiempo que hemos estado trabajando, la oportunidad que los estudiantes menores de 18 años han tenido de acceder a los centros recreacionales. Cuando recién comenzamos había una cantidad mínima de estudiantes que accedían a estos centros recreacionales, y ahora más de 1,000 estudiantes menores de 18 años participan de las actividades en los centros recreacionales. Hemos invertido e incrementado la cantidad de dólares que se invierten en los programas de empleo para los jóvenes en el verano, y hemos hecho cosas específicas como proveer transporte público gratis durante el verano para que estos jóvenes puedan llegar a sus trabajos y entregarles a ellos las llaves de la ciudad básicamente. Pero estamos conscientes de que esto no es solamente un esfuerzo esfuerzo de las agencias que están dedicadas a enforzar la ley, sino que eso debe ser un esfuerzo junto de todas las personas y de las instituciones de las cuales, o como las que hemos estado hablando el día de hoy, para proveer un apoyo socioemocional para todos estos jóvenes. Entonces, todas las ideas que hemos estado hablando y el de poder no solamente doblegar la cantidad de trabajadores sociales en los diferentes lugares, pero cómo ayudamos a que estos jóvenes verdaderamente tengan acceso a estos trabajadores sociales. Y hemos hablado de cuestiones como el programa de mentoreo, el programa de My Brother Keeper o el que cuida a su hermano, pero si no tenemos suficientes personas disponibles como mentores. Entonces, creo que se trata de un conjunto de acción junta en el que vamos a poder ver el progreso necesario.
Awesome. Thank you. It is 6:55, so we will take about 2 more callers, but we do want to respect everyone's time with the stated agenda. Can I have caller Shawnette Gillespie, if you're still there, if you could unmute yourself?
Hi. I'm wondering, and I think, Mayor, you addressed it already, how are we identifying mental health needs within the schools and with some of our youth, and how are we making it more accessible to families to know how to access services for mental health?
I appreciate it. And I missed the first name. What's the first name?
I said I just think you addressed it already by hiring more social workers for mental health services, but how are we identifying the needs of families who are needing those services, and how are we going to address those services going forward? Do families actually know how to identify mental health services in communities that are served primarily by Medicaid services?
Yeah, that great question, Sean. I appreciate that. You know, I met with the superintendent, Susana Cordova, this afternoon, actually. It was just her regular quarterly meeting with me, and she and I talked a lot about focusing and doubling down on mental health. And she recognizes that all of us have to do a better job in communicating and promoting what we have available for our young people and their families, right? So she is working on some models along with my team. We're going to coordinate on this, how we train parents early on, how we do early signal on kids who might be in trouble or maybe had trending in a direction that is not going to be healthy for them. But more importantly, how we inform parents and family what's available to them every day. And again, she brought me a startling number of social workers that they brought in, and it correlates with the increased number of suicide responses that they're making, threat assessments that they have to respond to, and the fact that they're having to respond greatly. But let me say this, and the last thing I'll say before Angelica speaks, and that is we need to work outside of the school to create more beds and treatment services for kids. She gave me a number of about 41 kids that they had referred to human mental health or social support programs a year ago. Only one kid was accepted because there was not enough services for them. We are seeing, since the recession, a decrease in the number of support resources in the community for all of us with mental health challenges, but particularly our kids. Not enough beds, not enough service providers. And unfortunately, the federal government, the state have not picked up on the investments.
Thank you.
Okay, muchas gracias por esta pregunta tan importante. Justo ahora en la tarde, hace unas cuantas horas, me estuve reuniendo con la superintendente y hablamos de la importancia de proveer ayudas de salud mental. Entonces, estuvimos hablando de cuán importante es la comunicación y el promover este tipo de programas, y ella va a estar trabajando junto con mi equipo. Nos vamos a estar uniendo para mirar la mejor manera de desarrollar planes y programas de entrenamiento a los papás para que ellos puedan distinguir y reconocer ciertas cosas en la vida diaria. Entonces, y que veamos qué tipo de servicios también están disponibles para estos padres y para estas familias día a día. Definitivamente el incremento en la cantidad de trabajadores sociales y el incremento en el número de las amenazas de suicidio que ellos han tenido que estar tratando es alarmante, y acompañado de
So thank you. So for our last caller, last 4 digits 7922. Are you there? 7922, are you there?
Uno de ellos fue aceptado con éxito en una de estas facilidades. Entonces, definitivamente estamos trabajando con una situación en la que tenemos una alta demanda y hemos tenido muy poco apoyo por parte del gobierno federal en estos fondos para estos recursos.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, this is 7922.
Yes, what's your name?
Hi, this is Cynthia Barnes, and I've been an educator for many years, and one of the things, I work in higher ed, and we had what we called an early alert system, where faculty members, when they noticed changes in students' behavior, could alert someone in the department, a counselor, or the department head, so that someone would intervene, contact that student, and find out what was going on with them. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we might set up a system with DPS where they would have an early alert system where teachers would have the opportunity to identify students who seem to be struggling or having changes in behaviors, and then we could, put a team of people together who could intervene and make contact with that student and with the student's family.
Ms. Barnes, great question. Actually, that's exactly what I'm alluding to. Right now, DPS and Denver Police Department, as a non-law enforcement response, but those teams are already in place, and now we're working through some legal matters on how we can do that without violating the privacy of the kids. So, that matter of fact, as recently as this afternoon, I was in a conversation about that today, and we're trying to expedite as quickly as we can. Very, very good suggestion.
Fantastic, Mayor.
Muchas gracias. Justamente el día de hoy estuvimos hablando porque eso es exactamente lo que estamos tratando de hacer en sociedad con las escuelas públicas de Denver y el Departamento de Policía de Denver. Estamos trabajando un plan en el que podamos hacer exactamente eso. Entonces, esta tarde hablábamos de cómo nuestros equipos están mirando las maneras de poderlo hacer y cómo hacer una medida como esta sin tener ningún tipo de violación de la privacidad y de los derechos de las personas o las familias involucradas. Pero muchas gracias, es exactamente eso lo que estamos tratando de hacer.
So with that, I am going to thank you all for being on the call. Such an important conversation, but tonight we had a couple hundred folks on this call. We still have about a dozen people's hand raised, and we couldn't get to everybody, but we want you to know that we are in this all together, and we want to continue the conversation. There's going to be several opportunities in the next few weeks and months to continue to engage in this work. All of our emails are firstname.lastname@denvergov.org. So Danny Glover, like the actor, in our community engagement team. My name is Quan Atlas, like Taekwondo, KWON, Atlas like the map, and Michael Sapp with Public Safety, SAPP. And again, we want to continue to engage, but I want to give the mayor one last word for everybody, and thank you all for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Quan. I cannot thank all of you enough for getting on the phone, and I'm sorry that we couldn't get to everyone who had their hand raised. Let me encourage you to email all of us. Again, that put a period between the names, so it's michael.hancock@denvergov.org or michael.sapp@denvergov.org, so that if you have a question, we can receive your question and we can get the answer to you. We're not going to stop until one of the texts I got tonight was, what's an acceptable number? It's 0. There's no other number that we should be yearning for but 0. And we've got to put a stop to this. Since the start of this year, Aurora has already seen 13 gun-related fatalities. Denver has seen 6. And I can tell you that Mayor Coffin and I have met just last week, and we are focused on finding solutions on a regional level to address this. And I'm grateful to our police department and as well as our various agencies that have created what they call a RAVEN network. It's called the Regional Anti-Violence Enforcement Network. And they are working together to deal with this trend that is unacceptable by all of us. And the last thing I will share with you is that we created the Opportunity Index. This is our way of removing the solutions just as a law enforcement response. How do we take indicators in our community, as Jonathan pointed out and Pat has talked about, Mike has talked about, and been able to get ahead of the potential for violence. Teen pregnancy, dropout rates, truancy, attendance rates, hunger, as an example. How do we get ahead of those indicators that typically 8 out of 10 times lead to the prediction of or the actuality of violence in a community? Those are the things we're focused on, but we need our community to engage as well with some of these creative ideas that have been brought to the table already, as well as what I hope you will email to us. So we're not done, and we'll be back having another conversation relatively soon. Let me thank you all for joining us. Let me thank Angelica for translating, and let me thank Quan for being our masterful moderator. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Quiero tomar este tiempo para finalizar y no quiero terminar sin agradecerles a todos y a cada uno de ustedes por haber participado de esta conferencia. Quiero recordar que nos pueden escribir y ya sé que no pudimos atender y se quedaron unos cuantos de ustedes sin poder compartir sus preguntas o comentarios, pero les motivamos a que por favor envíen por correo electrónico. Los correos electrónicos son primer nombre punto apellido punto denvergov.com. Entonces, es súper importante que podamos escuchar lo que ustedes piensan. Por favor, manden sus preguntas y estaremos dispuestos a contestarlas. Alguien me preguntaba ahora más temprano, ¿cuál es un número aceptable? ¿Cuál es la meta que tenemos? Y el número aceptable simplemente es 0. No vamos a parar hasta que lleguemos a tener un número de 0 en esto, porque no es algo con lo que nos queremos conformar. Hasta este punto del año, la ciudad de Aurora ya ha tenido 13 muertes por cuestiones de violencia, y en la ciudad de Denver hemos tenido 6, y nos hemos reunido junto con el alcalde de Aurora para trabajar fuertemente en iniciativas que nos van a ayudar a tomar esto de la forma más seria y a lograr un cambio. También quiero dar gracias a quienes nos ayudaron a poner junta esta régimen anti violencia por parte de las armas. Estamos trabajando y también trabajamos para crear el índice de la oportunidad, y el índice de la oportunidad es como nosotros como ciudad podemos valorar todas las cosas que de un momento a otro pudieran ser para nosotros un indicativo de peligro, un indicativo de violencia. Entonces, cómo notar a las personas que se encuentran en situaciones de hambre, notar los números de embarazos juveniles, las situaciones de hambre, las personas que están viviendo tipos y problemas de asistencia escolar, porque 8 de 10 de esas situaciones terminan reflejadas en cuestiones de violencia. Entonces, estamos muy enfocados en eso y continuamos trabajando en conjunto con la comunidad por hacer esto una realidad, y continuaremos trabajando por eso. Esta conversación definitivamente va a continuar. Estaremos hablando más acerca de esto en las próximas semanas, así que quiero darle muchas gracias a todos los que participaron en esta reunión y fueron parte del trabajo del día de hoy.
Again, thank you all this evening, and please look forward for more opportunities to engage, and it's also time for us to move into action. So again, if you have any suggestions, please send them our way, and if you have any groups or organizations you'd like us to connect to, come visit, speak with, please connect us as well. Folks have already been asking if there's a transcript of this call. There will be a recording that we will work to make available. It will be a pretty large file, but we will try to make that available to folks. And again, if you can connect with us via email as well by calling our office. Thank you all. Have a good evening.